Hello my lovely patrons, it's Radhika again, and this video shows the process of an acrylic painting I did on a 50 centimeters by 100 centimeter canvas. So this is the biggest canvas I've ever painted on, and I really enjoyed it. With the big brush strokes and everything, it can be a lot of fun. Oh, I just dropped my paintbrush. Let's do that again. Yep, that happens on a regular basis. I think I drop my paintbrush at least once every painting. Sometimes it's more than that. Yeah, that's okay. It's okay. It's fine. So, this painting was commissioned by a friend of mine who lived and worked in the south of Chile, and in this beautiful, beautiful place called Puerto Fuy in the forest of Huilo. Yes, I know. The names of the places in Chile sound funny. That's okay. Enjoy it. So, she asked me to paint this landscape, and I was so happy to do so. The reference photo got me super excited, and I got started on it as soon as I got the canvas. As you can see here, I started sketching out basically the sky, the trees, the landscape. I generally tend to sketch my paintings with paint. I used to do it with pencil, and then I realized that I really didn't like it because the graphite tends to mix in with the paint afterwards, and it kind of muddies the colors. So I stopped using pencil like, I don't know, 10 years ago. And I just paint directly, I just sketch directly with the paint, and it's much better that way. So here I'm using a couple of different greens. The first one was a bit more of a blue green. The second one right here has a lot more yellow. It's a sap green. And I'm still putting in the general shapes of the clouds, the trees, and everything else. And now I've gotten in that thicker sky blue, and I'm painting the sky. I think I've mentioned this before, but I like to paint from back to front. What that means is that I'll paint what's furthest away in the background first, and then I'll work my way towards the foreground of the painting. And the reason for this is that it helps me organize what I'm painting, how I'm working, and also because there was a time when I just sort of painted areas of the canvas sort of willy-nilly, and then I realized, oops, I forgot to add this cloud or whatever, and now I gotta paint it behind this tree, which I just spent like 5 hours detailing, and then I'm painting this cloud and it overlaps and it's wonky, so but forget it, just forget it. You start from the furthest part away and then you work your way forwards, and that's much easier. Take it from me. Unless you're one of those really meticulous artists. I've seen people, like, I don't know, start with an eye, like an eyeball, and then they like work their way around until they have this huge portrait thing, and I'm like, I can't do that, what? But that's okay. So there you can see I've painted some clouds, and it took me a long time to get those clouds in. I had to go over it a few times. The clouds in this picture are very whitish. There's not a lot of color in them at all. So that was, I guess I created layers by actually layering the paint, and sort of wispy clouds blending in with the blue in the background, and then the clouds that are a lot sort of thicker had more white. And then at this point I'm happy with the clouds, so I've gotten started on painting or outlining the foliage, the forest. And you can also see back there that I've put in the general shape of the mountains with the cool blue parts of it to show I guess the rock, and then white for the snow. By the way, these mountains are, I think they're volcanic. Most of the mountains in the south of Chile are volcanic, so that's something fun and exciting. Notice how I've started painting the trees with this fan brush, which gives it this leafy texture without me having to do a whole lot of work to make it look that way. So yeah, you switch brushes based on what kind of textures you want to give to the paint and the painting in general. I was using a round brush for the clouds, and now I'm using this fan brush with a lot of paint on it to block in the trees and the foliage. And it really makes my life a lot easier when it comes to painting trees, because otherwise if I'm using another brush, I have to go in and paint all of those individual leaves, which by the way I do anyway when I'm putting in the details. But when you're blocking things out, you want them to be quick and easy. At least I do. I like to work that way. So I've added some yellow ochre to the paint to put in this sort of very pale green / yellowy foliage. And I'm still blocking out the trees, especially the ones in the distance, because like I said, I'm painting back to front. But I'm putting different layers of paint, darker paint, lighter paint, in order to give it texture and sort of depth. Yes, exactly. And I can also use the fan brush to make this sort of grassy, long grass look to it. And I'm gonna have to go in there again, like I said, in the future, once I'm doing the details, in order to put in the detail. Let me tell you a little bit about the south of Chile. It is filled mostly with temperate rainforest. It rains there a lot. You have these beautiful trees everywhere. And the further south you go, the more broken up it is by lakes and rivers. Actually, Chile is a very versatile country when it comes to landscape and weather, and a couple of other things too, but I'm talking like for painting landscapes. In the north you have a desert, you have mountains all along the east, and ocean all along the west, the Pacific Ocean. And then you go south and you've got a lot of beautiful trees and forests. A lot of this land is protected. It's turned into a national reserve. So wait, national reserve or private? I know some of them are national and some of them are private. But anyway, point is, somebody's gone through the effort of taking care of these places, and I am so glad because they're beautiful and we need more green areas and nature in the world because we keep screwing it up. So actually, I would really like to move to the south of Chile one day. It's my sort of goal is a little bit of a very sort of decided word. I would like to, let's say it's a dream. Yes, my dream is to live in the south of Chile, or if not that, then a place just as green and beautiful. I mean, I haven't even started, I'm not even halfway through this painting, and it's already starting to look really nice, isn't it? Just because of the subject matter. So, in this painting we have what seems to be a chunk of forest, divided by, I'm not sure if that's a lake or a river. I couldn't tell from the painting, but I know that there are a lot of rivers and lakes in the south, so it could be either one. I'm gonna say that it's a river. Yeah, why not? It's a river. It's probably the Huilo River, actually. Either that or it's the lake that leads into that river, and I've already painted this river before. It's probably the same one that had the picnic tables that were submerged underwater, which was so cool. I took a picture of that, I painted it, and I was like, yes, this is gonna be on my wall forever and ever. But this painting that we're looking at right now is on the wall of this friend of mine who commissioned it, and she was very happy with it and continues to tell me how much she loves it, and that makes me really happy. So I loved painting this one. Look at those trees. As you can see, I've gone back with that fan brush and I'm just sort of dabbing it on the canvas and creating this really fun leafy effect. There are probably some technical terms that I don't know about, clearly, that probably I don't know. I really hope no one's out there judging me like, oh my god, Radhika, where's your education? No, no. I'm mostly self-taught, even though I went to a school where um, I was supposed to be learning how to paint and everything, but mostly the teachers just sat there and told us a couple of things every now and then while we just did our own thing. So hey, technique-wise, I'm self-taught. So yeah, that's good. I like it. I'm proud of myself. Oh, ha! Well, as you can see, we have jumped forward significantly in the painting. I have painted the mountains. Basically, those are done. I put in some texture, the snow and the rocks and shading and whatnot. I've mostly gotten the, I'm gonna call it the island on the left. I don't know if it's an actual island, but since it's separated from the rest of the landscape by that river lake thingy, then I'm gonna call it an island. That's mostly done, as you can see. I'm gonna have to go in there and put in the details later, and it's gonna look much, much nicer afterwards. And I got started on the grass too, but that one is gonna need a lot more work. Hey, you saw there a little bit, I started to put in colors with the palette brush, but then I realized, no, palette knife. And now I'm going in with this 1-inch brush, and I found that it makes this really cool texture, this very like leafy texture, really good texture for trees. And so I decided to just use that for most of the rest of the painting. It worked really well, and I was very happy with it. So now I'm going in and putting in these darks. The colors that I use here are mostly sap green mixed with Prussian blue. Prussian blue, maybe a little bit of Van Dyke brown, and to give it that really dark color without putting in any black. I find that mixing Prussian blue with Van Dyke brown makes like an almost black, but like a greenish black. It's not quite black. My point being that it looks more natural. So I'm going in, putting in these darks, making some funny faces on the way. It's strange to watch myself paint. I don't usually pay attention to my looks when I'm painting, but now that I see it, it's pretty funny, especially all sped up like that. Such concentration. Anyway, so I'm going in with these darks, painting in the trees, painting in the fence, going from different brush types to palette knife to switching it around, you know, doing whatever is necessary at the moment in order to achieve the effect that I want. There was this tree right behind the fence that was really dark, and so I went in there and I painted that, and then I went back to the background and I was like, oh, that really dark tree is sort of contrasting with those lighter ones. I'm gonna have to go back and, you know, blah blah blah. So it's a lot of work. It's I don't know. This video doesn't even begin to show the amount of work that it takes to make a painting this size with this much detail. But I'll let you know that I would rather be doing this than anything else. Even in the moments where I really struggle, and I do. There are moments where I get really frustrated with paintings, and I'm just like, oh my god, I need a break, and then I stop, you know, I can't even look at it for like a day, and then I go back and I'm like, oh, I got an idea, or oh, now I know how to solve that, or what if I try this? So each painting is its own challenge and its own learning experience, which is great. I always learn, especially when I'm painting. New stuff to discover, new ways of doing things. Oh, this grass was such a headache. I had to paint over it like, I don't know with how many layers, maybe 4 or 5, because it didn't feel right, and there were like dips in the grass which created shadows, and then some of the blades of grass or whatever were really yellowish, others were brown, others were green, others were like a yellowish green brown. Anyway, so at some point I got frustrated and I'm like, alright, I'm gonna move on to different parts of the painting so that I don't go crazy. So that's what I'm doing here, and I'm continuing to put in the details and textures of the island and the bushes and the trees, and I'm probably gonna keep working on that background, those like trees in the distance. It's like I never stop. I think that's one of the great differences between working in watercolor versus working in acrylic or oil or a medium where you can just paint over whatever, you know. With watercolors, it's like you paint something a certain way, and then if you don't like it that much, it's like you just sort of have to accept it, and so it's like, yeah, I did that, that's the way it's gonna look, it's done, goodbye. Can't go back and fix it. Whereas I tend to take a lot longer with my oil paintings and my acrylic paintings, because if there's something that I'm not quite happy with, I can just keep adding lights and shadows and shapes and details and whatever until I go insane. So the perfectionist in me thinks, yeah, I'm just gonna keep going until it's perfect. And then the realistic human of me just gets really tired and frustrated and thinks, actually, no, it's never going to be perfect. All it can possibly be is good enough and finished. So that's what I aim for. Good enough and finished. So here I am using a very tiny brush to put in the details. Oh, and since I'm working with acrylics, I have a little spray bottle with water always handy, so that my paint doesn't dry out on me too quickly. I need that stuff to be moist so that it can be transferred to the canvas and look nice. Yes. So when it's all sped up, you can see the progress of the details very clearly. Whereas when I'm painting this and it takes hours, I'm like, oh my god, I've been here for centuries and there is no visible change. But yes, there is visible change. It just takes patience and love and dedication. Yeah. So with this itty bitty brush, I'm taking in some different colors to put in the highlights and the textures of the leaves and the trees, putting in a couple of browns and ochres and leafy greens and dark greens and almost bluish blacks and whatnot, and giving these trees over here a lot of texture and making them feel like, or not feel, I can't touch them, but look like trees, like these southern forest trees. God, they're so pretty. I bet when the wind blows through there, you can just feel like you're in heaven. That's my idea of heaven. This is paradise. A nice crisp wind, not too hot. Maybe it gets cold here in winter, but I bet on this summer day it is just perfect. Can you imagine living right behind that fence in some cozy cabin or a cottage? You could be living in a cottage by the river, and every summer you could go outside and jump into that river when you want to be refreshed. I don't know what accent this is. I think I'm trying to make it Scottish. I think I'm failing. I'm just gonna stop. But yeah. I think my dog would be so happy living in a place like this. I mean, maybe she wouldn't care so much about the river, but all of that space and that quiet would be amazing. Yes. I'm gonna have to take her to the south, and soon. Anyway, I'm rambling. As you can see, I've pretty much finished the island. Maybe I'm gonna have some, I don't know, I'm gonna put in some details later on. But now I'm working on the details back there in those trees, making them pop out a little bit more, putting in those little blobs of paint for the leaves and the foliage and whatnot. And at this point, the background is basically done, and I'm just gonna be working on the trees that are closer to the foreground. And last of all, I put in the foliage around the front of the river, the one that's the part that's supposedly closer to us, and then I work on the grass, and the grass took me a long time to finish, like I said. But unfortunately, I don't have any footage of me actually doing the grass. I think I don't know, either I forgot at that moment when I was painting. Towards the end of a painting, I'm generally just so focused on getting it finished and putting in those details that I don't really worry so much, or I forget, or I don't think about taking a video of it. So maybe I should like enlist somebody's help with that. Like, hey, could you just make sure I get the end of this painting so that people can see how I actually finish one for once. But yeah, you'll see the difference though. I'm gonna put an image at the end. Here I'm putting in those leaves and those highlights in those trees that are close to the fence, and still working on the background because I wanted to make sure that you could distinguish the trees that are in, that are closer to the viewer from the ones that are in the background. And once I've finished the trees that I'm currently working on, then I go back to the water and I paint the river, making it nice and blendy and watery looking before finishing up with the foreground. Well, this video is almost over. Here I'm just sort of painting a little bit through the slats of the wooden fence, putting in some highlights in the cabin, on the roof of the cabin. I think it's a cabin. Maybe it's a shack. I don't know. I would love to know what you think. Let me know if you have any questions, or you can leave comments as well, either showing your appreciation for the painting or giving me some constructive criticism, because that will only make me a better artist. So, feedback is always appreciated. Alright, I'm gonna wrap this up, and in just a few seconds I'll transition to the final painting. 3, 2, 1, magic! There it is! Beautiful Puerto Fuy. Thank you very much for watching this video and for your support. I love you all!